This episode is brought to you by Naked Fig Soap. Shop over a dozen handcrafted artisan soaps locally sourced and made in Arizona using the finest non-toxic intentional ingredients. Naked Fig Soap also offers facial care products along with accessories like soap dishes, soap saver bags, and more.
Visit their website at nakedfigsoap.com and use code DRUMMINGUP, all one word, for 20% off online orders. And that is the best place to find her now.
Yes.
She doesn't really have a storefront so much as she has
As of right now.
Yeah, as of right now,
Yes.
she has her products in certain locations,
Yes.
which again is the best place to find her is at her nakedfigsoap.com website.
Yes.
Or her socials. Instagram is a great spot to find her. Ask her any questions where she's going to be at like a farmer's market.
Yes.
You can find all that out. Or
But coming up, she's
Yeah.
moving to bigger and better opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. And we're very happy to hear that because,
Yes.
we just want to
She's
make
one
sure
of our
she's doing
favorite,
okay.
favorite companies.
Oh, yeah. Whenever we're getting low, we always place our order.
Yes.
And again, use that code drumming up,
Yes.
all one word, to get that 20% off discount.
For sure.
nakedfigsoap.com. It'll be in the show notes. We'll have her website. And then the best thing to do is from the website, go find her socials, follow her. That helps her. And by you doing that, it helps us because we know you're listening and we know you're buying her great products. She also offers tattoo care and everything too.
Yes,
so
she does.
just a ton of stuff that she does. It's all locally made and everything. So what was that website again?
That is nakedfigsoap.com.
Using code drumming
Drumming
up,
Up.
all one word, for 20% off at checkout.
Hi there, this is Julian of Gorad, and you are listening to Drumming Up Conversation. Hell yeah.
Drumming up conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Yeah.
All right, so today we are talking to Lisa Strid from Aridus Winery. She's the winemaker there. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right.
You want to just jump right into
Sure.
everything?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go right into it.
So we're proficient at drinking the wine, but we aren't proficient in the winemaking process. So that's
Sure.
the purpose of having you on today, to learn a few new things.
Learn and educate other
Yeah,
people
for-
as well.
for
so.
sure. Yeah.
All right. So how young were you when you started working at your uncle's vineyard?
I was in my mid-20s, so
Okay.
I wasn't terribly young.
Okay, gotcha.
Gotcha.
Okay, awesome.
And that was in Oregon. Was it Oregon?
I was living in Oregon, but his farm slash vineyard are about an hour north of Portland, just outside of Winlock, Washington.
Oh wow. Okay, awesome.
So on your bio, you said that after the pruning and netting and crushing and fermenting, you decided that that was what you wanted to do as a career. What was it about all that labor intensive work that made you want to turn that into a career?
There's something really satisfying about, at the end of the day, you feel tired and you know that it's for a reason. You've been doing something that has worn you out all day long. So in terms of like the physical aspect, I just found it very satisfying. Like you could see the work that you had done literally as you were doing it. So there was something really pleasant to me about being able to like sit down at the end of the day and be like, yeah, all those rows right there, we pruned those today. The other ones are going to get done tomorrow. And yeah, there's just, with winemaking, it's a long process.
Right.
And it's an ongoing process, but being able to like have tangible results, that's something that really appeals to me. And just like, I don't know, whatever it is in me that needs that really scratches that itch for me.
Sure. That's awesome.
Awesome. What part of the winemaking process do you enjoy the most?
There are a couple of parts of the winemaking process that I really enjoy. Right now, we're finishing up our bottling season, but part of that is blending. So I really enjoy blending. That's probably my favorite non-harvest activity, because that's where you really get a chance to play around and, engage with the artistry of winemaking, just tasting and thinking about what does this wine need to make it feel more complete. What happens if we blend in, say, a little bit of cab to the Malbec, things like that. Because you never really know. It's always a bit of a surprise, like what might happen when you're blending. So that's always fun for me, just being in the lab, tasting, playing around. And then when harvest comes around, I really like the excitement of like the first grapes coming into the winery, and everybody's, it feels, I did drama and theater stuff when I was younger, and it feels like putting together a sort of play. Everybody's really excited about like what is going on, and like the start of harvest is a little bit like opening night. Everybody's really amped up, and you're embarking on something that's going to take a lot of time and energy over the next couple of months, but you're at the start of it, and like it's just the world's full of possibilities at that point. And I would say similarly, like when the reds start to come in, you know that you're really getting into the thick of things. And with every new lot that comes in, at that point, you're starting to get pretty tired. So it gets exciting to know that we're that much closer to being done. So those are kind of the aspects of winemaking that I really enjoy.
Nice. Very cool.
So, is it harder to develop red wine than white wine?
White wine is, with white wine, a lot of what you're doing is just monitoring. So making sure that the tank stays at the right temperature, that the yeast aren't dying, that sort of thing. With red wine, it's a lot more labor intensive, because the color from the red in the red wine, it comes from the skins. So you have to be constantly making sure that those skins stay in contact with the fermenting juice in order to get good color. So what that means physically is just a lot of manual labor, whether it's hooking up a pump to the tank in order to pump the juice over the top, or taking a tool and physically punching down those skins into the fermenting juice. And we do that at Aridus 3 times a day, either one of those processes.
Wow.
And you have to clean before, after. It just takes a lot of time and a whole lot of energy.
Wow.
And your reds are very red when
They're very dark.
yeah, I love it. I love the color of your wines. So yeah, for sure.
Thanks. Yeah.
It does make a difference. We appreciate it. So
Super. I'm glad.
Are there any grapes varieties that you favor more than others?
Definitely. Yeah. Everybody at the winery knows which grapes I don't like. I'll refrain from saying those ones out loud. But I really love Syrah. I like working with Syrah quite a bit. I think it's probably because it is the first red that comes into the winery typically. And I just love drinking it. I love the flavors of Syrah. I think it's just a beautiful grape, and I think it does well here in Arizona. I really like Malbec as well. You don't have to work very hard to get color out of it. And so with Malbec, we get to play around with like, what can we do to just get like the most flavor out of the grape as possible. In terms of whites, I really love Sauvignon Blanc, just because it's so aromatic. And again, it's a wine that I like drinking. I didn't expect it to really be one of my favorites from Arizona, but it is. I think where we're situated, we're able to like kind of straddle the line between a New Zealand style and a Bordeaux style. And that it's just a fun wine to make and drink.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
That's awesome.
How long does it take from first plant to first harvest typically?
It typically takes 3 years.
Okay.
Wow.
So in year one, when you plant, you want to just make sure that the vine has what it needs to really establish itself. Year two, you're training the plant along your trellising system. And again, you want it to continue to grow in order to be able to support grapes in the upcoming years. So you want it to be putting its energies towards growth and towards, storing in its roots in order to survive the winter. And then in year three is when you can really start harvesting and making sure that you're getting fruit off the vine.
Okay.
Wow,
Wow.
that's
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's intense.
I
Yeah.
mean, because if you're just a startup winery, so you have like no income.
I know it's really nerve-wracking for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
For sure. Wow.
That's why you have
Kudos to you guys.
That's why you have to enjoy the labor intensive
Yeah,
parts of it. Because if
exactly.
you don't, then yeah, you're all that time you have to wait.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So you touched on the red blends earlier, and it kind of sounded like a trial and error on what goes into those. So we were kind of wondering what the percentage of grapes fill the blends, but it sounds like it was kind of trial and error.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit pragmatic and a little bit trial and error. So, when you're a winemaker, some years you might get a huge abundance of fruit off of one type of variety, and you might have had like a massive wind event that completely it led to a lot less fruit on another variety. So you kind of have to look at what you have available for blending and because like if you don't have enough of something that you really want in your blend to support the standalone program, then you obviously can't use that for blending. But when you do know about like what you are going to have to play around with, that's when you can start playing with the percentages within those varieties.
Okay.
Wow.
Are there any new varieties that you are working on right now that you haven't worked on before?
Yeah, well, so the vineyard at Aridus has been in the process of being planted for, years, even more years than I've been at Aridus.
Oh, wow.
And so we're finally on our third year of growth for Graciano and Petit Verdot. So I haven't worked with those varieties from our vineyard just yet. So this year will be the first year that we're working with those.
Okay.
We have worked with them before just from different vineyards in Arizona and New Mexico.
Okay.
We had the Graciano in Flagstaff last month. Oh my God, that is so delicious.
Oh my gosh, I love Graciano. Yeah, that's another grape that I just absolutely love working with.
It's
Well,
so
keep
good.
it up.
Yes,
Keep it
that
up.
one is so good.
That's the plan.
So when it's time to harvest, do you go through and you hand pick everything?
For
Have you
us?
harvesting?
Yeah, at Aridus, we do hand pick everything. Our vineyard crew is really great, and they'll get out there at 3, 4 in the morning, headlamps, and just start picking. There are other wineries that have mechanical harvesters, which mechanical harvesting technology has gotten really good. So, there are some loads that come in from a mechanical harvester that just look beautiful. But for us at Aridus, we have to truck the fruit from the vineyard to the winery. And usually that happens probably 8, 9, even 10 a.m. in the morning. And for us, if we were to let the fruit from a mechanical harvester sit for that amount of time while we brought it into the winery, I would worry about spoilage organisms and things starting to ferment already. So when it's hand harvested, those clusters really stay pretty intact. And then that means we get more control over the process at the winery.
When is harvesting season for you guys?
It's coming up. We typically start end of July, beginning of August. And the way we see it usually go is we get some fruit in right in that time frame. And then we have like 2 weeks of waiting. And then everything just starts coming in. So we're usually done, like the last fruit typically comes in end of September to mid-October, just depending on how the weather treats us. And then we're fully done with everything, usually by the end of October.
Wow. Does the monsoon season have any varying effect on the grapes?
Oh yeah, it definitely does. Sorry, my dog just walked into
You're fine.
yeah, it really does have a huge effect. I don't know what he's doing, sorry. Yeah, so if it rains a whole lot like it did last year, we had such major issues with rot in our white grapes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because it just came in at the right time to like keep them wet, and it was so easy for like fungal and mold issues to develop in the whites. So that was really it cut down our white harvest really significantly, especially in our Viognier. But for the reds, they're a little more, they ripen later. And so they were at a different stage of development. And the rains were just wonderful for the reds last year. What we saw was we didn't have to really irrigate much. And they had a really slow and even ripening because of the cooling effects that the rains bring. So it was great for the reds. And I mean, I love that, but at the same time, I would have liked to keep the whites as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
But we've had years where the pump out at the vineyard just struggles to keep up at all with the irrigation because like 2020, it was so hot and we got very little relief from the rains. So yeah, the monsoons, they're such a blessing for the most part. But sometimes, you just can't keep up with certain rot issues.
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah. And let's see here. What type of barrels do you typically use? Do you use barrels for a while?
Yeah, we use a lot of barrels.
Okay.
We typically use French oak.
Okay.
It kind of varies as to the percentage of new versus used. But we really love the profile of various French oak offerings. And we do have some American oak and a few barrels of, I believe it's Slovenian oak, one barrel that is Russian oak, but for the most part, it's French oak for us.
Do you ever reuse the barrels?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. They're a huge investment, and so it's cost prohibitive to replace them every single year.
Sure.
So we reuse them as much as we can.
Do you guys actually stomp on the grapes?
No, we don't.
Have you ever? Just for fun?
Actually, I haven't because I don't really like being sticky.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of my coworkers have. They'll take I'll let them take like a bucket or two of the grapes themselves if they really want to stomp on them, and let them go to town. But that's not it's not something that's ever really appealed to me.
Yeah, for sure. So how long is the aging process? And during that aging process, is that how the alcohol content is controlled?
Um, so the aging process, it really varies depending on the wines. So whites, we tend not to age for very long. Um, Usually we'll either keep them in barrel for a year to pick up some flavor, or we'll bottle them pretty soon after harvest. It just, fermentation and harvest kind of can sometimes produce some funky aromas. So you want those to kind of settle out and dissipate. Um, but with reds, we typically age the reds about 18 months to even up to 36 months in some cases. The reds just have a lot more going on in terms of tannins and anthocyanins. And so they need a little more time for those compounds to link up with each other and smooth out. So red wine post fermentation, just like right after harvest, usually doesn't taste very good. You have to give it some time to age. And as far as the alcohol content, that's usually almost entirely, well, it's entirely dictated by how much sugar is in the grape.
Okay.
So the aging doesn't really have an effect on the alcohol content.
And as far as when you're barreling everything, when do you start sampling the wine? When, how many months in, or?
Well, usually, I'll taste it periodically throughout the year just to kind of get a sense of where is the wine at, what is going on with it. And then maybe a few months before we're going to bottle, that's when we'll start really, really tasting and blending and, making decisions as to whether we want to hold a particular barrel back for extended aging, which we call our barrel selects. But yeah, it's kind of a case by case basis.
Okay.
What a tough day when you get up and say, I have to go taste wine today.
Darn, I got to taste the wine.
Yeah. Mhm.
So what flavor profile are you looking for to know when it's ready to be bottled?
For me, I'm usually looking for like a textural thing. So if it feels rough on the palate, because tannins, they're present in many foods. And so the easiest way for me to like think about explaining the feel of tannins is like if you eat a walnut, in your mouth feels like it feels drying in a way. Or if you drink tea and you feel that kind of like bitter roughness. So those are tannins in other products. So with the wines, I'm looking to see like, am I getting that rough feeling, or does it feel more smooth on the palate? Sometimes when you taste a wine, it's like your lips are suctioned to your gums after one sip. So we never want to put out a wine that does that. So yeah, I'm usually mostly looking at texture more than anything else.
Okay.
And what is the bottling process?
It's pretty simple. We'll blend up the wine in tank, and then we'll filter it. And after that, then we'll take a pump and send it to our bottling line. The line itself is really cool. We'll load bottles on one end. They'll be picked up, rinsed with water, dried out with compressed air, purged with nitrogen. Then they'll go on to the fillers. They'll get filled with the wine. And then right before corking, they'll get hit with nitrogen again. And then the corker will pull a vacuum and push in the cork. Then it will get a foil and a label, and that's that.
What's the purpose of the nitrogen?
Well, oxygen can cause wine to age much more rapidly.
Okay.
So we want to try and prevent as much oxygen from touching the wine as possible during bottling. So you can't really escape picking up some amount of oxygen because it's a lot of steps that that wine is going through to get to the filler. But as much as you can minimize it, you want to, because as soon as that wine is in bottle corked, the cork will let in like a small amount of oxygen, and that's good. But if your bottle itself is filled with just air, the wine will eat up all of that oxygen right off the bat, and it's less protected in the aging process. And it within a week, your wine could taste as though it's been in bottle for 2-3 years.
Oh, wow.
So the nitrogen is really just to prevent all of those sorts of oxidative reactions from happening.
Okay. Once bottled, is the wine ready for retail, or do they sit for a period of time?
It takes a little bit of time for the wine to recover from the bottling process. You know, it's a lot for a product that's just been sitting inert in a barrel for years to suddenly be pushed through all of these hoses. There are a lot of hard turns that create like shearing forces. Of course, the pumps themselves are exerting forces on the wine. So it kind of gets beat up a bit while it's bottling. Um, and so usually it's anywhere from like 2 weeks to a month or so before the wine like kind of gets its bearings and starts tasting like you expect it to. But for us, when we're bottling, we're not really a winery that's focused too much on bottle aging our wines. So when we put something in bottle, we figure it's pretty well ready for public consumption.
Okay, that's awesome. Um, as far as the taste profile goes, do you think aerators make any difference on the wine?
Um, I was thinking about that question. I think it really does depend on the aerator. I mean, I think, the ones that you just pour the wine through into the glass,
Mhm.
sure, it'll get more air into it, but you can probably achieve that just as well by, swirling your glass a bit while you're drinking it. And like, say, if you wanted to decant a wine, that is something that would also uh, to my mind, that's an aeration sort of process. But I mean, I guess my answer is yes, but does it matter too much? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were always told like let it breathe for an hour stuff like after you open it, but we got an aerator because my parents would always talk about it, and I'm
Uh-huh.
just curious if it makes a huge difference or not. So
Yeah, I mean, oxygen always does because it allows some of the volatile aromas in the wine to like start to release into your like, so you can smell it into your glass. Um, and wine, of course, will change. I'm sure even over the course of drinking through a bottle,
Right.
an hour later, it probably tastes different than when you first opened it. Um, but yeah. I mean, I guess my answer is yeah, they make a difference, but also like it just depends on what kind of experience you want to have yourself personally.
for sure.
Is there any difference between corking a bottle and having a twist off cap?
Yeah, there are a few differences, but I don't think they're like necessarily anything that should deter a customer one way or the other.
Mhm.
In terms of a natural cork, you're getting something, it's a really nice closure for wine just because, as I mentioned, it does allow a small amount of oxygen into the bottle. And it's 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 really lovely in that, like, you can it's a material that you can compress and then it will expand and allow you to have a tight seal, but not like a seal that's like that won't allow anything in.
Mhm.
Um, and there's been a lot of advances in screw cap technology to the point that like a lot of screw caps are designed to also allow a small amount of oxygen into the bottle. I think the major thing that most people, uh, in terms of quality, may or may not be aware of is that with a screw cap, it's exceedingly rare to get a bottle that is corked, whereas with natural cork, it does happen, and it's a result of a reaction between bacteria in the cork and the wine itself. I mean, cork is a natural product, and it's really hard to maintain the level of consistency that the cork producers are able to achieve. So, you know, 1 in 1,000 bottles going bad isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. But if you want to ensure that it doesn't happen at all, then a screw cap is the way to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then as a consumer, how long can we store a bottle of wine?
It really depends on the conditions that you're storing it in and whether the wine itself is meant to be stored for a long period of time. I think I think it's more and more rare for wines to be made in a way that the winery expects the consumer to hang on to it for many, many years.
Mhm.
Just because who has the space to store wine optimally for 10 years plus? Almost nobody. So, uh, I mean, really, I hate to say that it really depends, but it really does depend on,
Yeah.
you know, whether you have a cool place to keep the wine and whether the wine was even made to be stored for a long time in the first
What
place.
what determines that as far as wines to be stored? Is there different types of wines that do, or
Some wines lend themselves better to long aging.
okay.
Um, Certainly, the things to think about are the potential tannin content,
Okay.
the level of acidity, um, and you know whether you know the producer is making a wine that they think can stand up to many years of aging or not.
Okay.
But primarily in the wine itself, it's a function of the tannin level, the acid level, and to some extent the alcohol level. With sweet wines, they're kind of a beast on their own, but sugar can also act as an excellent preservative for wine as well. So some of the very sweet dessert wines can age for an exceptionally long period of time.
Okay.
Huh.
And as far as like when you do store them for like a few months or a year or something like that, should you turn them every so often if they're laying down, or what's the best way? If they're standing up, what's the best way to keep them? And if they're kind of laying down, what's the best way to keep them?
Um, I don't think there's any right or wrong way.
Okay.
You know, people used to think that if you kept them standing up with the cork at the top, that the cork would dry out and become brittle.
Mhm.
But research has kind of shown that that's not the case. There's enough ambient moisture in the bottle, just, you know, in the space between, you know, the gas space, to keep the cork moist enough to keep the seal.
Okay.
Um, and then if you're storing it on its side, I don't think you necessarily really need to turn it. Um, you know, you may develop some sediment in the bottle just on whatever part is the lowest, but if you're aware of that, you can pour off it. Um, yeah, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to like keep a bottle.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Yeah.
We have learned a lot of stuff today.
Yes, we have. Yeah,
That's
definitely.
awesome.
So where do you guys ship everywhere in the United States?
We ship almost everywhere. There are a few states that have really strict shipping laws. I
Okay.
think New Hampshire, Massachusetts, maybe Utah.
Okay.
But for the most part, we can ship to just about anywhere.
And the best place to find your wine is on your website, I assume.
Yes, the website ariduswineco.com. We have a shop and you can load bottles into your shopping cart.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, we've fallen in love with your wines.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
so good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And you have a tasting room in Scottsdale.
Mhm.
And you also have a tasting room down in Willcox as well, correct? Down at
do.
your location? Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. And they can get all your socials and everything from the website as well, Instagram and all that. Okay.
Yep. I think we got Instagram and Facebook. We're not on TikTok yet, so.
I don't think we are
Fun.
either.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
We really appreciate having it today.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking the time.
Of course.
Absolutely. We definitely learned a lot
Yes.
today, for sure.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Drumming up conversation. Drumming up.